Welcome. In this video, we're going to begin this week's module, which is going to cover how we can create a website using Quarto documents and then how we can publish that website in GitHub pages. So many data scientists have a website to market themselves. So the goal here is for you to build a similar website to market yourself. And this is super helpful, particularly when you're looking for jobs. So it's pretty easy to create a personal web page using Quarto and publish that in GitHub pages, but we'll walk through this process very carefully. And so this website, a link to this website that has the instructions is posted in this video and all the other videos in this playlist. You can see the address up here if you want to follow along with this, but I'll be scrolling along. And so this week in the module, we're going to be working with creating a website, and we're not going to be creating any code or working with any data. So it's going to have a little bit of a different flavor from the previous weeks. And we're not going to be working in Google Colab running code. Since we're working with Quarto documents, we're going to be using either RStudio or Posit Cloud to edit those Quarto documents and to publish them to HTML files that we're going to use to build our website. So in some of the videos that follow in this playlist, I'll be using RStudio or maybe Posit Cloud to work with those Quarto documents. We'll also be jumping around between some web pages using GitHub and other web pages as reference. So it'll be a little bit of a different flow in the playlist this week. But to get us going, I want to first discuss what is Git before we get into GitHub. So Git is a version control software. It's called the VCS. So this is it's a nice way for you to collaborate with other people on a project or even collaborate with yourself. And so you can imagine if you were working, say, on a textbook or on a research paper, you might have multiple files that you're editing at the same time. You might have multiple Quarto documents that you're editing at the same time. You very well may have some data that you're working with, and you may have some scripts, some code scripts that you're working with. And so you might have different people collaborating, working on different files at the same time. You might even have multiple people working on the same file at the same time, making changes to that file. And so you want to make sure you're carefully avoiding one person undoing changes that another person is doing, and so on. So that's what version control does. It takes a file where multiple people might be contributing to it and makes sure that there's no conflict amongst the changes that people are making. And this is also useful even if you're working by yourself on a project. I have a computer at home. I have a computer at work. I work on the same project at home and at work. And so I want those files to be consistent. And Git gives me a way to do that. And Git is free software, open source, which is super nice. And it is heavily used amongst, say, the mathematical community, data science community, and statistics. So this is really like a go-to software when you're collaborating with other people. So getting familiar with it is definitely a useful skill. A couple of things just to mention before we go in and check to see whether you have Git already installed on your computer is that Git works a little differently than, say, like Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive. If you're familiar with those file sharing, they often have like auto saving. So you make changes, it's automatically going to be saved and then pushed into the cloud. Git does not work like that. It is not going to automatically back up your files. So when you make changes to a file, if you want that file to be, those changes to be pushed into the, say, cloud version of it, then you have to manually say, I want to push the change that I made to this file into the repository in GitHub. So it won't do that automatically for you. And that can be a little problematic if you forget to push changes that you've made into the shared repo. And another thing is that you do need to have a centralized repo if you've got multiple contributors or even a single contributor with multiple computers. So in the next video, we're actually going to discuss how you can set up that central repository using GitHub. But before we get into using GitHub, I want to make sure that you check to see if you already have Git installed, in which case you won't need to do anything. So some Macs, for example, and Linux machines, and I don't know about Windows machines, they come with Git pre-installed, possibly. In others, that might not be the case. So let's see how we can check whether or not you have Git installed. So I'm going to open up these instructions. If you click on this link, it's going to take you over to these instructions. And these instructions outline ways for you to check to see whether Git is installed, whether you're using Windows or Linux or a Mac machine. And they also give you a way to see how to install them, whether you're working on a Mac, a Linux, or a Windows machine. But before you install anything, I want you to check to see if you've already got this installed. So if you're working on a Mac, then you would want to open up a terminal. And I am working on a Mac, so you'll see what that looks like. If you're working on a Windows machine, then you'll want to open a command prompt, or maybe it's called the command line. I don't have a Windows machine, so I can't show you that, but it works very, very similarly. So on a Mac, it's called a terminal. And so if you've never used the terminal before, you can go into the Spotlight, which is like going to search your entire computer up here. That's in like the toolbar on top. And then search for terminal, and I can see that I got a hit for terminal. Now I'm going to zoom in on this so it's a little bit bigger. And we want to do git version is the command that you want to run. So if you're working on a Windows machine, it's just like a command prompt that you want to open. And then you're going to run one command, which is git version. And I'm going to run this on my computer. This is telling me that I do have Git installed on my computer and what the version is. I don't know if this is the most up-to-date version, but I know it works good enough. And you can update the versions if you want to do that as well. But this is telling me I have Git installed on my computer, so I don't need to do anything. I'm ready to go after this into the next video. If you got an error or some unknown output over here and you're not just seeing a Git version, then that means you don't have Git installed on your computer. And then you can come down here and look at the instructions on how to install Git on whatever device you might have, regardless of the operating system. So if you have Git installed, that's great. You're ready to go. If you don't have it installed, follow these directions to install it on your computer. And if you get stuck, please reach out to me if you're my student for some help, because this is the first step. So I want to make sure you've got Git installed and then you're ready to go on into the next stage. So in the next videos, we'll take a look at GitHub, which is a server that works with Git. But please make sure you've got Git installed on your computer before moving on to the next step, and just let me know if you need any help.